Hey, what's up? This is Peter with Pure Cinema Pioneers, and today I'm in Vienna in Austria by the Danube River to bring you a little video about textures in cinema. So for me, it's really about revealing the truth of an atmosphere when it comes to the art of cinema, in films that we love like The Shining, or Clockwork Orange. I realise I'm talking about Kubrick. What I really want to be talking about is Andrei Tarkovsky, Wong Kar Wai, and Martin Scorsese. And the reason why is these directors have gotten to a point where they recognise the fact that art is the priority, and when it comes to their films, they're actually using textures as a way of revealing a truth that would otherwise be kind of bland, a little bit boring in their shots. And they recognise the fact that cinema is a visual medium, and that the kind of photography that you're using is very vital in order to get the audience to emote in a way that they maybe can't just by cutting alone. And yeah, you can make the audience emote by using cuts, different angles. There are, plenty of techniques that I talk about in other videos, but today we're talking primarily about textures, because isn't it beautiful when you can just see something that you almost feel like is so visceral, and you can just enter that world and be a part of it. And really I want to teach you guys about how you can use them in your films, about how other directors have used them in their films, and why it's so goddamn important. Okay, so let's shoot on it. So it's a really good one for cheating a little bit, because, let's say in The Mood for Love, where they picked that certain wall for the textures and the lighting that it had. Of course, lighting affects your texture depending on what angle it's coming from. So sometimes if a light goes off at a location as well at 10 p.m, at 12, midnight, it's gonna absolutely ruin that texture or create a different dynamic. Which is why sometimes shooting at 10 p.m. can be a bit different from shooting at midnight, other than the fact that sometimes it's a lot busier or not. All day, your textures are changing based on the light and, how bright the light is, etc. If you've got a controlled studio, of course, you might not have that problem so much, but even then, it's something to bear in mind for a director of photography. But even just as a run-and-gun filmmaker at our level, you need to approach your locations from a practical point of view. Otherwise, you're going to fail sometimes when you show up, and you're going to leave with something that you've compromised with, because you will compromise. Everyone compromises, because we just think, oh, well, we got the camera, we got the actors, and the location might not be perfect, but hey, it's better than nothing. No, what you should be doing is you should be looking in the area then for a location which has similar attributes, maybe tell something a bit different and incorporate that in your film, because the discovery of the truth is, not limited to your location, perhaps. Now, this isn't true in all cases, but a lot of the time, you are always going to do that compromise. You're always going to get back to the edit and be slightly disappointed, and Stanley Kubrick wouldn't have stood for that. So neither should you, really. Every frame should be like a painting, and if your painting is not what you envisaged, if you ain't got the palette, you ain't going to do the painting, are you? You're going to do a crap imitation. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can adjust the camera sometimes I mean, what am I saying? I don't believe this at all. It's something that you really should be getting perfect. And this is being compromising again, because this is what we do, isn't it? We are always going to have to solve problems and answer questions and make compromises a lot of the times with our actors, with our crew, with our shots. So just try and get a location which has a multitude of textures, something which probably won't fall through a lot of the time. For example, and it's not only limited to this, but a forest. A forest will probably not lose its textures from the trees, from the leaves, from the dirt, from the rain. Obviously, if it gets late at night, then you got a problem with lighting. So it does. Lighting changes throughout the day. The textures change because the way the light hits it, the way the sun is in the sky will hit it, the way the fog is, maybe early in the morning. Yeah, all of it matters. So even with a forest, you can't be safe. Even with a blackboard, you can't be safe, with the way the light hits it or dust on the blackboard. So, I mean, what are we talking about here? A lot of the time, something just has to be lived in. Something has to have a history to it. An object has to have a history to it, like a car. Maybe a newer car isn't as nice as seeing an older car because it has that, story to it in the content, in the frame. Just yet another thing that has character to your film. So pick your textures out of character as well. Is there a lot of texture to your actual actors? Do they have a life experience that's worth showing on screen? Do they have an interesting face sometimes? Not that you'd always pick them for their interesting face, but do they have a complete character of texture in their personality? Or is it kind of, they're just a pretty boy, not really much about them? Textures are not just close-ups of brickwork. They can be whole landscapes which make up the world. And, you can see that brickwork from quite far away, so you don't have to be right up next to it to get it. Also, what does that mean, having a close-up of that texture? Just because it's interesting? Are you just garbage collecting at this point? I did that for quite a lot. I've managed to garbage collect what seemed like the entirety of Birmingham City, and you don't use any of those shots despite the kind of awesome texture. I used one shot of a footprint. I used what else? Even I was going to use a shot of an alleyway. The only reason I used it, there's a rat in the shot, so it added a texture to the character of the rat. So, you've got a truth there in the scene that, transcends the texture. That's just there to make up the atmosphere a lot of the time, which proves that atmosphere isn't everything, but it is so important to... I mean, if the rat was just on a normal road or pavement with nothing much to the background... Yeah, the rat's still there, the rat still has character, but it isn't providing anything to the atmosphere. It isn't giving you a vessel for which to enter the world and experience the world the way that I want you to. Maybe it doesn't provide the right context to prove something later on, prove a point. If you look at Wong Kar Wai films or Martin Scorsese films, a lot of the time, by the end of the film, everything that we've seen has led up to so that you understand why a character would do something because of the life that they've led. You're really showing a visceral element, a truth to the world, a realism without being so realistic that it's out of the realms of cinematic. Your score and sound can be textured in a way. This isn't, this is a bit out there, but, is this a bit different to having a different texture to my voice if I was to stand back from the microphone? That is a different feeling that you're going to get from going back here and talking as I walk further away. That is a different texture to my voice. So you're doing the exact same thing but with visuals, and it is important, as you can hear. if you have sounds which are all lumbered together in one big score, then you're just kind of, you're not really saying anything. But if you have one sound which rings out and the clarity of it is superb, in whatever way that is, even if it's I love using synth tracks, I love using pan flutes, I love using real instruments from all over the world that you can really hear, and they kind of affect your soul. If it sounds soulful to you, it probably means that there's a lot of texture to it. I'm not an expert of texture on sound, but that's just a little part of it. There are millions of different textures you can do a course on, texture and fashion and fabrics and everything to do with this. And obviously there's everything from hay to glass to wood to tiles to wallpaper, books, carpet, for example, gravel, mud, everything. I could go on and on for every single texture. Feathers, ceramic, everything. Metal, rust, rusty metal compared to normal sheen metal, different types of metal. So, and this is all part of your world. So when you're looking at a shot, and hopefully if you're showing a location, you're seeing a variety of textures in that location. It's not necessarily that you construct a scene based on the textures ever, but it will help you out, I must say, if you find a location that is full of textures, because you know that in whatever light maybe you're going to get a good shot depending on what time of day, because that can really fuck up your shoot if you turn up and the texture that looked great at 9 a.m. doesn't look so good at 1 p.m. or 5 p.m. And of course, if you're shooting throughout the day, you might change lighting anyway, so maybe your shots are going to lose continuity, etc., etc. Usually, and that's why I shoot at night as well, so that you've got control over lighting quite a lot of the time. Not that you always have to shoot at night. I've shot in the day quite a lot as well. But it does help to have shots at night that you can control. And, of course, when they're wet, when it's raining a lot of the time, it will look absolutely fantastic and so filmic. You can shoot it because you're creating another level of texture. You're adding water to the dynamic. Sometimes you're adding dust, you're adding fog to the screen. It doesn't have to be a floor or surface. It can be, what's floating about, smoke, dust, the kind of flames, the kind of, sometimes even just having a bit of humidity will help. Although, now we're getting into the realms of what you can actually see and what you can't. But, sometimes just for the actors, it helps to kind of put them in a place where they can feel something different, so that they will show you a truth on screen that is different.
Hey yo, I'm feeling like Ray Charles. I got my shades on, I don't know where they are. You couldn't find me even if you had a radar. And I spit rapidly, AKA I make the music with the soul of the blind man. They be amazed how I get them ladies that climb in. And they try to do it, but they're blind to the fact that they're just stuck in the trap, but staying right where they at. But I'm Ray Charles, Miss A calls, talking to my dime and my Miss A calls. And I spit tough, bet you I'm a last great ball. I'm going 8, y'all, I'm the new Ray Charles. I don't need no walk.